It's hard to hear the truth with so many people talking. Join your host as he engages in unfettered conversations with folks from around the world, sharing their perspective on how business, technology, political policies, and world events affect our spiritual, mental, and physical well being. If you want to turn your thoughts into actions, then listen to the Brother of Light, dropping wisdom in your left ear and knowledge in your right.
Well, hello, folks. Welcome to this episode of the program. I'm glad you are joining us. Wanted to start off by saying thank you for bearing with us. I took a vacation last Wednesday, and I know today is Thursday. There's a purpose why we are. There's a reason for our purpose today in this episode. Did that make sense? Not sure. Hmm. So yesterday, as you know, was Wisdom Wednesday. And I want to share a thought with you today that I had about, well, kind of just things in general. The holidays are upon us, and things are really coming to bear. You know, a lot of people are traveling to be with family and um, to really. My head looks funny there. I'm really being kind of, I don't know, lighthearted this episode. I think I want us to be able to um, really have a conversation. So yesterday, I had my normal walk along the Hudson River. And for those of you that live in the Northeast, if you've never walked along the Hudson River, it can be one of the most interesting walks you'll have. And the weather outside, I was going to say the weather outside is frightful, but yesterday the temperature was in the mid 50s, but there was a fog across the city. And as I was going along my walk, the fog lingered, and it was a very thick fog. And I do this walk almost every morning. Gives me a chance to reflect and um, for me to connect with God and really sort of tend to take a look at where I am in life and what's really important to me. And if that's not something you do, I recommend you find some time throughout your busy lives to stop and meditate and reflect about your place in this world and your ability to impact it in a positive way. So the I have yet to title this episode, but I wanted to share a philosophical uh, thought process that I had yesterday. So I'm walking on the city and you know you can see the skyline on a clear day, and you kind of know what you're looking at, where you're going, and you just sort of feel that energy. And there was this thick fog that lingered, as I said before, on the city. And it was like a blanket across the water, right? This sort of foggy blanket. And even though I'd done this walk 1,000 times, and I could just barely make out the outline of the city, there was a sense of not really being able to see clearly across the Hudson. And as I'm going along my walk and I'm thinking about a foggy day, and I'm like, man, I know what the city looks like, but the picture is just not clear. I can't see it. And yet I kept walking. There was a certain amount of familiarity with my walk. And in my normal introspective self, I began to think about how that correlates with times in my life. And I'm not sure if there's been times in your life like this, but to where it may be days or weeks or months or years where you feel like your life, you're just in a fog and you can't see the way forward. And sometimes when we are in a fog, whether it's a literal fog or an literal fog, that can stir up anxiety, fear, a lack of self confidence, even though we should be familiar with the way forward. And I sat at the edge of the Hudson and really looked into the fog and really began to reflect on the foggy times in my life when I didn't know what tomorrow was going to bring. I didn't know for sure if things were certain, right, in life. And we know they're not, but still there's some comfort in believing that there are some certainties. And I began to think about how we handle those foggy times in our lives. I'll share with you, I'm in a foggy time in life. I think um, once you experience a round of deaths, they linger. I think since June of 2020, it has been a series of significant loss in my life in a lot of different ways. People very close to me have passed on. And I believe I have a pretty practical view, but that really can or does impact and affect you, or at least it affected me in a way that I was in a fog. I couldn't see clearly the the reality of the frailty of my life and the finality of death sent me into a fog. And things began to, in some cases, taste sweeter. The experiences became more deeply felt. And in a lot of ways, there was a sense of being really shaken, at your core. And I was in that fog. And in that fog, the only thing that I knew, or at least I know, is just keep walking forward. You may bump into things that you don't expect to be there. You may walk past things that you thought would be there. But the thing is to just keep moving through the fog. And if you're like me and you don't know when the fog is going to lift, you you hope it lifts so you can see your way through. You hope that the sun shines in such a way that it burns the fog away and then you get a sense of peace and calm. But I found that as I kept walking in the fog, that I began to become more comfortable in that blanket of haze, right? And isn't that the thing about life? And the reason why I delayed this episode was because the fog had remained for most of the day yesterday. And yet I kept walking through it, just like life. And then I woke up today, took my walk, temperature was about the same, and yet the fog had lifted and the sun was shining. The walk remained the same. And I know this is a very simple message, but the last 2 days have really been one of reflecting. Sometimes in life, regardless of how long the fog lasts, that we have to endure, that we have to keep pressing forward. And even in the fog, we're going to bump our toes or fall down or run into something that we don't want to run into. And yet we have to get back up and push through, knowing that at some point that the fog is going to lift. At some point, we are going to see clearly. That at some point it is going to be a sunny day. And I'll leave you with this thought. It's just a short um, personal reflection on my part. And I hope you can all relate to what I'm talking about here. Is that whether it's emotional or whether it's physical or whether it's mental or whether it's financial, there are always going to be periods where the way is not going to be clear, to where our efforts, our best efforts, those things that we've employed to make the lives that we have more, what's the word I'm looking for? More palatable? Yeah, it might not be the right word. It'll come to me. Comfortable based on our own estimation. Every day can't be sunny, and there's always going to be a fog. And no matter how scary the fog is, no matter how tumultuous the day is, the weeks are, the years are, a fog, like a storm, can only last so long. Our job is just to persevere, push through, some cases endure, and overcome. So as we go into this weekend, if you're like me, next time you're taking a walk or riding a motorcycle or in traffic and it starts raining or it's foggy or the way isn't clear, take a deep breath in, exhale out, and affirm that this too shall pass. You don't have to know when, but you know it will. And the only way you're going to know it passed is that if you're standing there long enough to see the clear day. Today was a beautiful day this morning. Tad bit overcast now, but it's not foggy. Today I can see clearly. I just endured. Whatever you're going through in life, whatever your challenges are, the way may not be clear to you now, but once the fog lifts, it'll all make sense. So thank you for joining me on this episode of Folks Unfettered. I know that was pretty simple, the conversation that we're having that I wanted to share with you. I hope that you find it to be as, I just hope that it's something that you can reflect and think on that makes your, whatever you're going through, make it a little bit better. Thanks for joining us here on the program. And we actually will see you next Wednesday. Have a good weekend.